Hi, welcome back, Croeso nôl. Today we're going to do something that is slightly different speed to what I normally do. Today I wanted to do a small response to one of the splendid Brandon F's videos. If you're not familiar with Brandon's channel, he is a reenactor and historian, and I highly recommend you go and watch this video before you watch this one. Off you go. Go on. Control-click, open it in a new tab. Pause me first, though, so you haven't got two sets of videos playing at the same time. I'll be here, don't worry. Good, isn't it? So, the first thing I want to do in this video is have a little bit of a response to that, just to add a couple of things I think haven't been mentioned that should be in Brandon's video. And the second thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about my plans for the next couple of videos and a few ideas that I've had for the channel that I'd like you guys to get involved with, so stick around for that towards the end of the video. But first, the first thing I want to say is that I subscribe to Brandon's channel. I think Brandon's videos are amazing. I think he's a wonderful reenactor. He's an exemplary reenactor. In fact, the effort that he puts and the time that he puts, just checking I'm in focus, I think I'm in focus-ish. The effort and the time that he puts into his clothing and his kit is outstanding. The amount of research that he puts in is really, really very, very good. And I wish more people reenacted the way Brandon reenacts. So the video that he put out, Do Reenactors Wear Uniform or Costume, is a great little it's a great little debate video about whether we should say that reenactors wear costume or uniform. And he quite rightly says that a lot of military reenactors dislike it when you call what they're wearing a costume. They prefer that you call it a uniform. After all, they are doing impressions of, they are reenacting men and women who would have called what they were wearing their uniform. So that's totally fine, that's completely fair. The other point that he makes is the word costume today is usually used... Oh, I found my glasses. Excellent, thanks guys. The word costume today is usually used to mean something that you wear for a special occasion, and a uniform, generally speaking, isn't that. If your job involves you wearing a uniform, you wear it day in, day out. You might have a special uniform, a number one uniform, or a dress uniform or parade uniform that you wear for special events. Now the problem here is Brandon is an excellent reenactor, but he is a military reenactor. His interest is almost exclusively in reenactment for the military side of things, which is, again, totally fair. That's absolutely his purview, it's his choice. Whatever you want to reenact, you reenact it. Big fan of that. If you want to be a combat wombat, you be a combat wombat. If you just want to be a musketeer or a rifleman, you do you. However, I think the main issue I have with Brandon's video is that it almost entirely ignores the fact that many reenactors, in fact possibly most reenactors, don't reenact people who are wearing a uniform. No medieval reenactor should be wearing a uniform. They might be wearing a livery, but that is the proper term for somebody wearing the uniform of a royal court, or a court of the nobility. It's a livery rather than a uniform. Military uniform in Europe certainly isn't really a thing until the early modern period, so I don't wear a uniform as a Viking. No Viking reenactor should be wearing a uniform, because the concept was unheard of. I think this is symptomatic. Brandon's excellent, well-researched and very eloquently made video is symptomatic, though, of this preoccupation with fighting that we have as reenactors. A few of you have, in the comments of my other videos, said that you find it quite refreshing to see me do reenactment videos that don't involve fighting and combat, and I can understand that, because the vast majority of reenactment videos on YouTube do focus on fighting, and the majority of Viking-related reenactment videos are things like people testing whether weapons can cut through armour, and testing whether arrows can pierce chainmail. And here am I doing things like shoes and food and embroidery and sewing and stuff like that. Incidentally, I've nearly finished my cuff. It's getting there, it's looking nice. Not sure if I'm going to fill the background in yet, but we'll see. Brandon quite rightly comes to the conclusion at the end of his video that the word uniform isn't necessarily always the best word to use, and the word costume shouldn't have those negative connotations, and he's absolutely right. Partly because costume simply means clothing. Certainly in the past, it meant clothing, and not only clothing, but your everyday clothing. It's costume, it's custom, it's the fashion, it's the habit, like a monk's habit. You know, it has the same sort of connotation of the thing that you wear day after day after day, you are accustomed to wearing. And that's why we have books like Costume Close Up. And this is for 1750 to 1790, so it's ideal for, say, if you work at Colonial Williamsburg, which is not surprising because it is from Colonial Williamsburg. There you go. The people who work at the people who work at wear historical clothing. Abby Cox has done a video of her time at Williamsburg where she wore 18th century kit for 5 years and it didn't do her ribs any harm. But that is costume. That is the costume of an 18th century woman that Abby was wearing. People in Williamsburg were wearing the habit and costume of an 18th century person. Just saying it like that, this is the habit and costume of a man around 1780, makes you sound old-fashioned. Well, that's because the old-fashioned meaning of costume is just clothes, again. This is a book entitled Women's Costume, 1877 to 1882. Revised and enlarged edition. Other books spring to mind, like Edmonds' Edinburgh University Press book, Military Costume, 1830 to 1860. There's also, I think, a Yale publication called Ottoman Military Costume. And that's because the word costume, in an academic sense, which is the sense in which many people like me use it, just means clothes. There's a society that studies the clothing of the past and the clothing of the present, and it's called the Costume Society. So, do reenactors wear uniforms or costumes? The answer to that is simply yes, because if you're wearing a uniform, and I think it's fair to say, and I hope Brandon would agree with me, that the purpose of a uniform on a reenactor is to make everybody look the same. You know, makes you look like a unit, makes you look like a regiment, which is the point of a uniform. It makes you look smart. But you are still wearing the costume and habit of a soldier, a sailor, a postman, a policeman, whatever it may be. It gets into strange territory when you're doing things like he mentioned, like suddenly putting on a policeman's uniform. Does that automatically become a costume? That, I think, is a level of debate that I don't want to get into, but what I do want to get into is the fact that all of Brandon's video talks about is the military side of things. And of course, what that does is alienates a very large section of society who in the past would have very rarely worn uniforms, and that is women. And I know that this is a serious issue in American War of Independence reenactment over in the States, where women who are out of uniform feel that they have very little to do at events. They feel relegated to repairing uniforms and watching the drill, as it's been described to me, which sounds really effing boring. To say reenactors wear uniforms, not costumes, completely alienates that entire section of the hobby, as well as people who reenact periods where uniforms just weren't a thing. And that's most of human history. So, far from this being a roast of Brandon's video, I think that this is just me wanting to supplement it by saying, in terms of military reenactors, if you want to say that you're wearing a uniform, cool beans. If it's something that makes you all look the same, yeah, I think you can classify that as a uniform, obviously. If you want to say it's costume or kit or garb or gear, equally, fine. But remember that not all reenactors are military reenactors. Therefore, not all reenactors wear uniforms. Full stop. It's not an either or, it's an and. You don't either wear a uniform or a costume. You can wear a uniform and costume. You can wear your costume. You can wear your uniform. You can wear your kit. The semantics of it, I think, are not as important as the acceptance that we have to show every person in our reenactment societies, whether they're in a uniform and reenacting a soldier or not, because we're not soldiers, most of us. We're not 18th century soldiers. We are not members of the British Army in the 18th century. We're not. We're reenactors. And unless you wear that every single day, it is absolutely a costume. You're wearing it to indulge in a hobby and an interest. You're wearing it to entertain, and you're wearing it to inform. That is more than just your everyday clothes. That is something that you're wearing for a special occasion. And that is the modern definition of a costume. And I like to think that my reenactment kit is just clothes that I could wear, well, all of the time. But unless you're somebody like Zach Pinsent, who wears 18th and 19th century clothing as his day-to-day costume, it's special event wear, really, isn't it? So, that's basically what I wanted to say. I think I do, in conclusion, I do agree with you, Brandon. I agree that the terminology can be interchangeable, but I also think that we must remember that there's a great deal more to reenacting than the military side. The living history side of reenactment isn't just reenacting the history of battles and reenacting the history of the military, and civilian impressions almost exclusively don't involve uniforms. So, reenactors, we wear costume, we wear clothes. Cool. That is the end of my little response. I do hope, Brandon, if you watch this, that you know that I do this with the utmost respect for your work, and I look forward to your videos appearing every time. Also, he used to be a member of the Royal Welsh Fusiliers of America, and as a former employee of the Royal Welsh Fusiliers Regimental Museum, I have to send my regards to him and his former unit. Right. Tea break. Yeah, so the second thing that I wanted to do in this video is to just give you a little rundown of something that I'd like us to do together, because somebody in the comments, well, a few people in the comments have asked me for reading lists, and that's really flattering that you want my input on your reenactment and your living history stuff like that. And I would gladly give you comprehensive reading lists on every aspect of reenacting, except I don't have those. I am by no means a leading expert in any of the periods that I reenact. I am a hobbyist, as is almost every reenactor. I do have qualifications in archaeology and history, but I don't make academic-style reading lists very often for my hobby work. Now, what I would like us to do as a community is, on the community tab, I am going to start the ball rolling. So I'm going to put some reading there that I think is going to be useful. It's mostly going to be primary sources and where you can find supplies and that kind of thing. And then if you guys would then jump in, we'll make something of a list. And you might have seen people do this in Facebook groups before now. That's perfectly common thing to do. So I want us to do it on the community tab here on YouTube. We will have a big old reading list, and let's keep it to, say, sources of information on originals and things like excavation reports, books, academic books on original pieces that would be useful for reenactment, things like that, translations of original works from the medieval period and later. It doesn't have to be medieval, but let's start the ball rolling with a bit of a reading list. So you should, by the time this video goes up, see a post that just about started that ball going. That's basically what I wanted to say. So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. If you want to subscribe, that would be lovely. Lots of people have said that my videos have prompted them to learn Welsh, which is a very flattering thing. So diolch yn fawr iawn am hynna, thank you very much for that. Mae'n bleser ac anrhydedd. It's a pleasure and an honour to be the person who's inspired you to learn my beautiful language. So diolch yn fawr iawn, diolch o galon. Lots of people doing it on Say Something in Welsh, lots of people doing it on Duolingo, so I wish you well. I hope you enjoy it. You will have to do some gymnastics with your mouth and your tongue when you first start, but you'll get used to it, so persevere, take your time, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. I also highly recommend you listen to radio programmes, podcasts from BBC Radio Cymru, BBC Radio Wales, and just BBC Cymru as well as S4C. S4C is the Welsh language TV channel. So get listening to those. They all have learner-specific programming. So pob luck i chi gyd. Good luck to you all. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's about all I wanted to say. I think so, anyway. I'm probably going to do a bonus video this week, because this is a bit of a short one. And it feels a bit weird. This feels like a weird thing. I know lots of YouTube people do it, and I just watched Brandon's video and I thought I'd do a little response. So I hope that's okay. Oh, I've got a Ko-fi account now. Coffee. I know it's coffee, but I always say Ko-fi, like Kofi Annan. So if you fancy supporting the channel financially, a couple of people have said that they would like to do that, which is mystifying to me. But it's very flattering and honouring, once again. So diolch yn fawr iawn. Unwaith eto am cefnogi'r channel bach ma. Thank you very much indeed for supporting this little channel. So I will put links to various things in the description. I'll pop the names of these two books in, because they might be useful to some of you doing 18th or 19th century costuming. How available or cheap they are, I don't know. But yeah, thank you ever so much. I will see you again very shortly. And yeah, hwyl am y tro. Bye for now. Brandon, don't hate me, Brandon. I think your channel is really cool. Brandon, please don't hate me, Brandon. I hope you don't think that I am a fool. I love all the videos you do when you're wearing your nice red coat with green facings. Oh yeah, everybody loves him. Please don't break. I've lost it. Lost it.